You're watching BCTV, Branford Community Television.
Good afternoon. My name is Captain Jeffrey Morgan from the Branford Police Department, and we're here in our 911 Communications Center. It's been completely revamped from its original installation back in 1995 when the building was new. But I'd like to introduce today Chief Kevin Halloran from the Branford Police Department, my boss. The chief was very instrumental in acquiring the funds and the ability for us to undertake this instrumental upgrade throughout the town. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Chief Halloran and get a little bit of an understanding of this project. Good afternoon, Chief.
Good afternoon. Hi, thank you. I just want to start with a little bit of history on this project. When I took over back in September of 2011, I recognized the need for a new communication center. Our radio system was failing quite frequently, and we had a federal mandate to narrowband or to reduce the amount of airspace that we use. So with that, we brought it before the Board of Finance, and we were appropriated a $1.6 million appropriation to do the comm center. Excuse me. So the communication center, as you can see here, is being done in 3 phases. This is the first phase, the installation of the new communications dispatch center. The second phase is the police department radios and transmitters. And the third phase is the public works upgrade. We just completed this phase of the installation about 2 weeks ago, and we thought it would be important to show the community what we're doing with the public funds and how it's going. At this point, what we'd like to do is to show you how these upgrades are going, how the system works, and the benefits of the system. Absolutely.
You know, Chief, when we came in 1995, we were one of the first communities in the state that had an actual co-located dispatch for police, fire, and EMS. We were certainly on the cutting edge of technology in 1995, and we continue to be on the cutting edge now. You know, this room has been staffed 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, by 2 telecommunicators that are always on service. And they answer all of the 911 calls for service, as well as the regular business administrative lines, not only for the police department, but the rollover lines that come into us from the fire department. So it's a very active and a very busy center.
Jeff, could you just talk to us a little bit as to why we replaced the console systems? The console systems were failing, as I understand it. It was a mechanical system, and we were unable to get the parts for the system. Is that correct?
You know, I know that you know, the video producers are going to show you an existing picture from back in 1995. You know, when we had it in. Those systems, even though technology's changed greatly, were called push-button systems. The dispatchers physically pushed buttons to control not only the radio frequencies, but the doors in our building, the tone alerts for all the different fire department. Those were all mechanical buttons that needed to be pushed on a daily basis. So after 17 years of those buttons being pushed, you know, they certainly start to fail. You know, the system, you know, Motorola is a #1 producer and the leading authority in consumer and business electronics. You know, they maintain their systems and build them for about 10 years. After that time, they go into you know, changes in technology. They don't manufacture it anymore.
So for lack of better terms, our communications company was basically going to scrapyards and stealing parts.
Absolutely, and that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
You know, since it started to fail, they don't manufacture those parts. It just becomes that vintage becomes a dying breed, and we can't get parts to replace it.
So the public, you're the guru in the radio world, and for the police department. So that the community could better understand. You know, we're talking about this narrow banding, and what does that mean? What does narrow banding mean? And why did we have to do this? Why did we have to go for this narrow banding?
You know, the federal communications, the FCC mandated throughout the frequency spectrums, not only up in the areas where cell phones operate, there are some radio communication systems that operate up there as well, but predominantly the 450 band where we fall, there's a great need for additional radio space for other businesses to come online, for other police departments to come online, for much like we're doing with our public works, and the chief will speak about that in a minute, all to become involved in the same frequency band so we can have interoperable communications. There's a great need for frequency space. Technology has allowed us essentially to go, in the old days, from a 4-lane highway down to a single lane and narrow the amount of space that we need to operate and have good communications, and it frees up more space for other people.
We're in competition with other businesses such as cell phones and other frequencies that use the airspace.
Absolutely,
that's correct.
absolutely,
right?
And other towns that are looking for more frequencies to bring their department public works.
Right, and now you just mentioned the public works, and that's something that I left out before is that this is also a radio upgrade for the public works department, as well as we're bringing in other town departments such as the animal control, all these ambulance, fire, police. So all these town departments are getting the advantage of the radio upgrade in the police department. It's just not centered around the police department.
Absolutely. You know, this was a town-wide project. It was bonded. It was a communications upgrade project for our entire public safety community. And when we speak of public safety, not only is it just police and fire, and we've shared a common frequency band for a number of years, particularly since September 11th, but we've never been able to enjoy that, sharing that space with our public works, and they are an important integral part of our public safety team.
Now, coincidentally, during our last couple of storms, the old radio system held up, and it was during Irene. It was one of the only systems that we had in the police department that actually held up. However, we had failures. It wasn't only mechanical failures with the radio system. Our radio system several times have been shut down for numerous hours, the police department radio system. So we had to jump over to the fire department's radio frequency, correct?
Yep, absolutely. And by us sharing this common frequency band, we're able to keep only one radio in there and change channels as compared to having multiple radios in a vehicle now.
Now the new radio system, does this do anything to improve the coverage that we will have throughout town, or
certainly it has. The backbone portion of our radio system, the transmitters, the police department's portables and mobiles, the police department side of it is going to what's called a simulcast system, where there'll be more than one transmitter coming on the air and broadcasting out to all of the police portables and mobiles at the same time. It will fill in all of those dead spots that we've sometimes seen over the past years, sometimes a little bit of the center of town, more so in the building, inside of buildings, inside of the bowels and basements of some of these buildings that we service. We were not really able to get good radio coverage inside. This new system, because of technology changes, improvements, and the lowering cost of its technology, has allowed us to do that improvement.
Now, when we first went into this project, one of the requirements of the system was, for lack of better terms, the sustainability of the system and improvements, so that we don't find the town being put in this position again. We put in certain fail proofs to make sure that this does happen. The other thing is about the radio system and the communication center itself. Is one of the goals were to make this a portable, as easily as could be done, a portable system. So that if we had to uproot and go to someplace else, we could do that. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And the chief, with the chief here, I mean, he has a good understanding of technology with his computerization background, and I think that we all recognize the need as we begin to move forward in regionalization, those agencies or those communities that are, number one, speaking about regionalization, and with an investment of this magnitude, $1.6 million, are we able to take this equipment and regionalize or move it into another building and come up with other communities and be able to use it. And to answer your question, that's first of all absolutely true. It's all portable. It's furniture that can be moved much easier than the old communications equipment. But more importantly, with its technology today, if we have to leave this site because of an emergency, if for some reason there was a catastrophic issue with our building, a catastrophic issue in the neighborhood, or the need for us to evacuate our own building, with the communications and the computer networking power that we have now, we can make pods or similar appearances of our communication system in other areas, whether at the state level or in an adjacent community, and still be able to operate and provide, continuity of government to the citizens that we serve.
Excellent.
I think in last but not least, we're going to show you a little bit more of the operational hardware that a dispatcher is using in today's technology. So we'll do that in just a moment. I think that one of the most glaring things that the community would notice is all of that push-button hardware that you probably saw a picture of before, where a dispatcher was sitting at one of those consoles with all of those buttons in front of them, has now been reduced to a computer screen and a computer monitor, and has computer power behind it. So all of those buttons and all that furniture has now been consolidated into one computer screen that the dispatcher is able to do all of that same function. Open doors, talk with police, fire, EMS personnel, send the dispatching tones over to the fire department, and again soon be able to coordinate a lot of the efforts between both of the agencies. The second largest thing that I think that the community will notice is that we have changed how dispatchers work ergonomically in the setting. Any one of our telecommunicators is here for at least 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Many of them are required to work over that time, up to 12 hours, and some of them up to 16 hours because of the way staffing levels go. It becomes imperative for good, efficient, and effective operation for them to be comfortable in their environment. And I think that one of the things that we're going to notice, first of all, is that these computer screens are able to move up, and as well as the keyboards move up and down to accommodate their own personal comfort level. Some of the telecommunicators like to stand when they're dispatching. They have the ability to move the screens closer to them, push it away from them. They're able to utilize their own task lighting to light the area that they're working on, as well as they have a little bit of fan power and a little bit of heat. As you can imagine, different people, different climates, they're able to control the climate and the environment that they're in. And it becomes very, very imperative for good productivity and the amount of calls for service that they're answering to be able to use that. But what I think we're going to really notice is the computing power that each one of these stations has now. And that's really where Chief Halloran comes into play. And he can really discuss a lot of the computing power that the dispatchers are using by today's standards. Chief?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. Well, not only the fact that our radio system went from a mechanical radio system to a computerized system, just about everything that we do here in the police department is done with computers. As you know, we do our CompStat. The CompStat, we use the data that is inputted into the computer system to direct our officers using statistics and probabilities to determine where we want to send our officers to high crime areas. So basically what happens here is the officers, the dispatchers or telecommunicators have several different screens. Off to the left, again, the radio system. Up top, you could see that we have some surveillance cameras. This is our Stony Creek camera. We have a camera located right down in Stony Creek by the fountain, as you could see. Part of the upgrade for the communication center was our CCTV, or closed-circuit TV, that we have surveillance cameras within the building. And what that allows us to do, I don't know if the cameras could see it, but before the officer or the dispatcher would have to sit at their desk and keep on looking back and forth to the screens, to their surveillance screens. Now the dispatchers also monitor our if we have a prisoner they monitor the prisoner. So it just brings it a lot closer to the dispatcher, so they're a lot more aware of what's going on. Below these two screens is the heartbeat of our police department. That's our CAD, computer-aided dispatch, and that's tied in with our what they call an RMS, records management system. And when they input data into this, that data gets pushed out through the rest of the building. So when the dispatcher takes a call, he'll input the person's name, address, phone number, what the problem is. If we make an arrest per se, the officer will come in, and the officer downstairs in the booking room will have access to all that data that they put in up here. So that's all within our internal network. The final screens are our E911 system, and this is where all the 911 phone calls come in. It'll come in with your address, your name, and the location where you're calling from. And that information is also migrated into our CAD RMS system so that we have all that data within there. And you can see up here is a map. That map plots where you're calling from so that the officers in the field also have that ability to see basically what's on these screens, particularly this screen here, in their cars, as well as where and we have a 911 call coming in now, so that the officer could see where they have to go with GPS coordinates and everything like that to get to their call. The computing power that they have here is by far state of the art. The footprint of the computers have reduced. In the back of this console is a case where this is all actually run by, this section here is run by one computer, and the 911 system is a separate computer. It's a server in the back room.
I think that that's great. The changeover on how our data flows is amazing from the technology that we originally implemented here in 1995. We've been very lucky through the communications agreements that we have and our ability to work cohesively with our RTM and Board of Finance. Like the Chief mentioned, much of this information is now viewable to our officers and firefighters out in their vehicles so that they can get this real-time data. They're able to take a look not only where the 911 call for service may be originated, but the home that they're looking for, past history in that home, and bring up very valuable information. So we're very fortunate that the political side of the town's government has been very gracious to support our efforts here to maintain the very best ability that we can to provide excellent service to the community that we serve. On that note, I think that in final, Chief, I think that we're very excited about the project. We're hope to be in conclusion with it by the end of the fiscal year. We're hopeful to have all those new public works trucks online and K-9 officers, sewer authority, all that stuff, so that we're able to communicate with them. And I think that for the most part, it's been a worthwhile project.
Oh, absolutely. And again, without the support of the community and the Board of Finance, the RTM, these projects wouldn't be possible. And again, I think that public safety is always a concern of everybody, and to know that your communication center, that we have the ability to talk to our police officers, our firemen, our public works department is paramount. And we've seen that in the past couple storms, Irene and Sandy, and this is without this, we would not be able to provide the services that we do to the town. This is what holds this all together between all public safety services that we have in town.
Absolutely. You know, in final, we would just like to say that, when you dial 911 or you implement any part of the public safety system, at some point you're either going to get a police officer to your home, a firefighter to your home, ambulance, public works employee, animal control officer, sewer authority. What you really don't get a chance to see are our staff of 10 very dedicated 911 telecommunicators and 911 operators who are here on a daily basis, and like I said originally, maintaining this facility 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and there's always 2 of them on duty. So we're very grateful for their hard work also. But on that note, I don't think there's much more to tell you about what's going on in the communication center. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and the Chief and I will see you again soon.